We can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land. But we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can. Oh, your neighbor over there, a bit bewildered, but he cares.
Hi, I'm Bill Grover. I'm your host today. Today we're going to be talking to Harry Leno, who is a Veterans for Peace, but he's also an activist in the local area and does some very powerful work with bringing awareness to health issues around AIDS and around addictions. Welcome this morning, Harry.
Thank you.
Maybe we could start with a little bit of the beginning of your background and how you got involved in doing outreach, and what was your experience?
It began at a young age. I was 12 and I began experimenting with alcohol, and I got really addicted to alcohol. And it wasn't until my later years, I was 48, when I finally, in 1982, got totally clean, and it turned another avenue on my life's growth and focus. And that focus and growth became involved in a street outreach program in bringing to injection users safe equipment to use, and I was providing direct care to these addicts, and I became involved at a dance, seeing a sign on the wall that said 35,000 people are dead from AIDS, and it said, "Where are you?" And it at the bottom it listed ACT UP Boston. So my sister lives in Cambridge and is an urban woman, and I asked her about it, and she said it's a new disease that they discovered in the injection community and the gay community, which was called AIDS.
And this was about when?
I think it was a year after that I got clean and sober. Uh-huh. And I looked into the program, and I joined ACT UP Boston, and they had a street outreach group called Ivy League. And I was in another street outreach group called the AIDS Brigade. And we were doing needle exchange around the Boston area. And then with ACT UP, we did it down in the kind of the Asian community, street outreach. And I call my method just seeking and finding people that needed my direct services. And I stayed with ACT UP for many years, and also with the AIDS Brigade, and I would do a lot of street outreach with the AIDS Brigade, one day a week in Boston. And then I would take my car and drive to New Haven, Connecticut, and just outside of the city of New Haven, I would do needle exchange with another couple of people that would be with me. And then we'd stay at a storefront, and we'd get up like at 4:30, and leave that storefront to go into New York City and spend the whole day in New York City doing street outreach with I call them customers, that we would exchange needles. And it was an exchange program where they would bring their dirties back, and we would give them clean needles and supplies.
Back in the 1980s, that wasn't...
No, it was an underground program,
so,
yeah, it wasn't recognized at all in a prevention area. You could be arrested because it just was, you were violating the law by having in possession hypodermic needle. It was just not recognized. Right. You know, they were struggling with this AIDS and how this virus was penetrating through a couple of different, it was penetrating through the whole population actually, but heavily in a couple of areas. It was the gay and lesbian community and the injection community that it really was taking its toll.
So it had a moral judgment around it that made it go underground.
very harsh moral judgment.
Right.
What we would do is we would stay in New York City and work the whole day, and then we'd drive back home to Boston that night, and we'd get that, you know, that rest on that one Sunday. But it was a long process and a long journey to leave Boston in the afternoon on a Friday to go into New Haven, and then from New Haven to go into just get a few hours sleep after doing needle exchange in New Haven. And New Haven had, I think New Haven was out in California, was one of the first on the East Coast to develop a needle exchange program.
A legal, or this is still underground?
It was, they did do a legal exchange program. It was monitoring the health of these people, and what needle exchange did to keep the viruses, the viruses, which at that time was AIDS,
Right.
and then Hepatitis-C kind of started raising its head. So there were two rampant viruses. But what struck me with the virus of AIDS, where people were literally, the program that I was involved in many communities in the Boston area, and this one community was Lynn, and people were just absolutely disappearing in stature. I'd go back the next week, and they would be half of what they were when I dealt. It was just an absolute, how can I define it? It was like a concentration camp starvation thing. You'd be looking, I mean, they'd be just looking, losing weight week after week, and then finally they would be so kind of incapacitated that they would have to go into a hospice. And there was a hospice in Boston on Parker Street, kind of up on a hill, whereby some of the people that I was dealing with, I would go in and visit them once they became in the hospice. But it was a time for me never really seeing people that had this virus that made them disappear, both physically, just totally disappear, and the death scene around this whole thing. They had no compassionate care, and they were trying to develop drugs to help these people. And ACT UP was a very powerful a group of young people that were doing, we would do many actions in hospitals trying to get compassionate care for people that didn't have money, that were going blind behind this disease. And it was just very, very harsh times. Again, as you pointed out, it wasn't a time where these people were being recognized. Everybody was fearful of AIDS and didn't want to be around people. And children that had AIDS going to school, they were victimized, and even the people that had the AIDS were victimized. And so ACT UP was an extremely powerful group that were involved for many years. ACT UP New York, ACT UP out in San Francisco, that did many political actions to educate people to this.
And at the same time providing as much support to the people that were
that needed the direct care
and threatened by
it. And there was no preventive measures at all. There was no funding, and people didn't even want to be discussing this virus that was both viruses, Hep C and mostly AIDS at that time. Now it's Hep C, and many years later, that causing many deaths. I continued also with ACT UP, and then I got my own route out around the city. I had kind of left the AIDS Brigade because I was out doing my own seeking and finding the direct care I could provide with street people.
In which city are you?
I was in Chelsea. I was in Boston, Mission Hill.
Okay.
And then I got into Lynn. And Lynn, I ran a program in Lynn for a period of time with a friend of mine, and we both got arrested. And that case went to the lower court, and they were, the lawyers, there were 3 lawyers that were on the, defending 2 of us, and they wanted to use it as a necessity of defense because there were so many people dying.
Right, right.
And I was sitting at the bench with my lawyer, and one of the lawyers, and he said to me, "This is it, Harry." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "We're going up now to discuss whether the judge will let us use a necessity of defense." And he went up before, they call him when they go before the judge. The judge did not allow them to use a necessity of defense. When the 3 lawyers that were involved in the case appealed this to the SJC, which was the highest court in the state, and the state took this on, this case, and they still upheld the lower court. But what came out of that case was a sidebar where one of the chief justices said Massachusetts should begin looking into a pilot needle exchange program. So that was one of the good things that come out, but it took them a long time, and a lot of people in the legislative offices still have blood on their hands to this day. I mean, they just did not want to be discussing anything about AIDS, and it was just a horrendous. And we had people out in the field that would attend these public hearings constantly, and it took years. And you get a picture Boston being one of the medical hubs of the world. Nobody was, I mean, there were a lot of people speaking out, but the voices weren't being recognized about this serious problem that they had. And Boston was one of the last states outside, I think it was New Jersey, there was a couple other states that held out, and all these needless deaths that these people had blood on their hands causing this by not accepting or looking in. And then once they did accept the program, it loosened it up so you could now have needles in your possession and not be arrested for them. You would have to belong and get registered with the state needle exchange program. They would take a form of your name and age, and it would all be coded. And if you got arrested, you could bring the card into the courthouse.
So this sounds like a very long process, a very emotionally draining process for you personally. You know, to be in this, to see people dying and actually disappearing, like you said, or disintegrating from the disease, and see them week by week. How did you keep your focus, and how did you keep your passion for doing this work? What things did you do to take care of yourself?
It was a very difficult time, and as we moved on, we did get funded. The group was called the Coma Foundation, and myself and maybe 7 other activists formed this group. It was called NEPA, New England Prevention Alliance. And we got funded, and we got a grant to be able to go out in the street to continue doing needle exchange and registering people to get into the state program. I was the only street outreach worker in the group, and it did allow for me to go to therapy. I forget what they call it, compassionate care, I think. And the group would pay to go to therapy. And the therapy really helped me, looking at, because you go back the next week to see these prospective clientele that you have that you would deal, and they would be either murdered or they would not be present. Many, it was a hugely revolving community. So as years moved on, and through this program, the more sophisticated the seek and find, I would call what I did was seeking and finding clients in empties in cities, you know what I mean? You just dig people out that needed your help. And I was given the gift to be present in that environment. And I came from that background, you know, and I also enjoyed the people. I love the people. To this day, I'm doing it. And I've been doing it since '83. I took 3 years off, and I left this country in '07 to do a 3-year, 34-month backpacking journey from Boston. I took it, 98% was done by bus. I had to get away. I had a younger daughter who was 34 years old that overdosed. Wow. And she had 4 children, and things just started to kind of crumble in my life. And I just wanted to get away. I had just retired, I forget what year, I think it was around '05 or '07. And so I worked real long and hard because I really never was I was always kind of a giveaway person. And I never really did anything for myself. And so I had a friend here in Ipswich named David Flood, who helped me design a program, would take me through all of Central and South America. It was an overview and a guideline. And I didn't want to fly. I left Boston, and I took 34 months. I went from Boston with Greyhound down to El Paso, Texas, and then I went into Mexico, and I did 13 countries, and 98% was bus, 1% was hitchhiking, 0.5% was boat, and 0.5% was prop airplane. To get out of, I was in Panama City, to get out of Panama City into Colombia. Colombia was hard to reach, and I got into Colombia, and I did every country in Central America except El Salvador, and the rest of it was done in South America. There were 13 countries. You had a 90-day visa at each country. Some countries varied. You know, if it was really expensive, like Costa Rica was really high and a little bit out of my budget, I spent very little time. I moved on down to Panama City, and I kind of hunkered down in countries that were not outrageously international traveled countries. You know, I try to niche places where my friend helped me with this overview. I spent a great deal of time, and I had to pay a forfeit in the country I spent most of my time in was Bolivia. I stayed maybe 5 months after my 90 days elapsed. So I got fined, and I had to pay all that money. I went all the way from Boston all the way to Argentina, and then I bussed back up into Ecuador. And I stayed in Ecuador. Ecuador was another country I spent a lot of time in. But it was just a pilgrimage, renewal, and to get re-energized. And so when I got back in 2010, I left in '07. When I got back in 2010, I got back in September, and then I organized this group called Love and Safety. And again, it was unfunded, and I would beg and borrow supplies from these different needle exchange programs. And I have a co-worker that is a daughter-in-law, a very, very dear friend of mine. And she wanted to come out in the street to see. She has a master in public health and wanted to see how the other side works. So she's been out with me, and she filled out this grant form. So hopefully we may get some money to continue. But everything is, volunteer. I pay for my gas, my hours, and I pay a few dollars to a very dear friend of mine that puts up these health kits. And these health kits have everything but what the addict doesn't need. They have all this safety equipment. They have the clean needles. They got 10, package of 10. They have alcohol wipes, which they use prior to injection. and wiping off the surface and then wiping off afterwards. They got condoms, they have bacitracin, they have a tie, they have a cooker, which they cook their product in, and all this package is all clean. They have cotton where they strain the product through, and all these are clean, sterile packages. And this here is a piece of, another piece of health, good health. It's an abscess kit, and there's a glove in there for them to clean their abscesses. There's sterile water here. There's bacitracin. There's a wipe here for them to wipe off. This is another piece of sterile equipment. These are the two pieces that we deliver to our customers out in rooming houses and out on the street, and homeless people that have a health problem with addiction. And these pieces help to keep people safe and not contact the two viruses, Hep C and hepatitis, Hep C and AIDS.
And your funding comes from grants and donations and...
Well, we're not funded. You know, I before I left, we were funded for like 8 years with a grant. And then when I left, the grant died and we used up the money. And then when I came back, 34 months later, to again reestablish myself as a street outreach worker, there was no grant money. I just begged and borrowed with the needle exchange program in Boston and in Cambridge to get supplies, and that's what I still do. Sometimes you don't get the supplies that you really want, but I work with no money other than what I put in for my gas money and for just my time that I put in, and this little bit of expense out of my pocket that goes to have these clean kits.
Are they made up separately? Or
everything is hand put in here.
Okay.
No, they're not. This is made up separately. The kit for abscesses. Hopefully with this grant, we may get reconnected and established to continue with a higher level of product that we can bring to these people that desperately need this kind of outreach.
Let's talk about what you're doing now. Let's say a week in your life right now. What does it look like? Can you...
Okay, first off, on Mondays, I go to Boston to get supplies. I come back home, and then I drop what supplies I give to my friend that puts these kits together, and she puts the kits together. Then I go back on Tuesday. Tuesday's my day out in the street with my friend, and then I load my car up with the kit she puts together. This week we went out with 150 of these kits and used them all up, which was 1,500 needles that we put out in distribution in the kit form.
And you give one package to each?
Well, whatever they ask for.
Whatever they ask for, okay.
With the stipulation, I mean, this is a lot of rooming houses. You go up 4 flights of stairs. There's no elevators and things, and a lot of street people that we deal with. And we ask them. It's like a harm reduction program that it's very imperative for them to bring their dirty needles back to us. Because first off, we have to have dirty needles back to get clean needles,
right.
Because we don't have money to buy product. And it's all working out of the car. We also, out of the trunk of the car, we give public health supplies like soap, razors, combs, toothpaste, body lotion. And this is all given to us by my friend. I guess set up a little website to get these. We're really not buying anything because we don't have money. But this has been going on since '83. I started doing street outreach, and where are we here? 2012. take 34 months out of that. It's just been a continuous year after year. When I went to court, they put us on probation for 6 months. I didn't do it for 6 months because I just wanted to continue to let that probation thing run out. It's been interesting over the years how the pressure, for me to look at, how the pressure of them opening up needle exchange and being able to have even the addict themselves go into the drugstore to make the purchase of clean needles, to see how it has relieved some of the pressure from police departments.
Right.
You know, we were always really hassled a lot doing that needle exchange program, and matter of fact, I had a car taken away from me, you know, and I went to one of the lawyers that was on our test case, and she said to me, "What are you going to do? You know, you want to continue doing needle exchange, and so you lost the car. You know, what are you going to..." So I just scratched that. It was hostilities mixed with tension. You know, they're trying to go into these. First off, I believe everything should be legalized. That's my feeling. I mean, when you see what's going on in the street, they move them from one area to another area. There's very little support for them to get. You know, they close treatment facilities, and it's just very difficult for an addict that wants to make a change in his life to be able to move into that realm. I mean, they get rejected. There's no money coming in for people to go into programs, extended programs that cut them down. So it's really hard to. I mean, I am really seeing what goes on. A very street-hardened cynic of what we do to people that are addictive people.
That are part of our community, that really need us to reach out and help, not to lecture to or judge,
exactly.
or we need to just be compassionate.
Yes,
and you certainly are setting the example for us.
You know, they are human beings, and we all are human beings, and they are people that have a addiction. They're sick people. So I just do what I can. I'm blessed to be able to be there doing what I do, and being in a place that it's needed, and grateful for being able to, for my health, to be around these people after what I went through myself.
It's an amazing story. I hope at some point you'll write a book, the story of your life, because I think it's an inspiration, and it's really a very powerful inspiration. You're continuing this work despite all odds, but the political atmosphere sounds like it's getting better for you and easier for you to move in these circles. But your passion is truly inspiring. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.
'Cause an idea, whose time has come, cannot be stopped by anyone. Plant your seeds in fertile ground. There ain't nothing gonna keep it down. Oh, we can do it. Yes, we can. We can change things throughout the land. But we all must lend a hand. We can do it. Oh, yes, we can. We can do it. Yes, we can.
If this moves anybody and they would like to contribute, it's Harry Leno. Fill it out to Nason. I can mail a check to Nason, and they will allow us from this big, huge pharmaceutical house to make purchase to bring these clean the products that they need. The grant money will go to this company. It's a company that provides services for medical use, and we use their 501c. Thank you, Bill. I'm just blessed with that energy, which is a great gift, really.
Yeah, it's an amazing gift. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.